This conference will now be recorded.
So now we'll see exception handling mechanism. What exactly the exception handling mechanism and how to handle the exceptions which has been getting arise upon executing the code. And then what are the various types of exceptions available in Salesforce? How to prepare our own custom exception classes also, what are the limitations are available, what are the rules that we need to follow upon creating our own exception classes, and then how can we handle the exceptions, what are the various blocks are available in order to handle the exceptions. We'll see practically in this case. Okay. Now, for example, come to a scenario. Assume that I'm a developer. Okay, I'm a developer. I'm writing some piece of code by using the Apex programming language. As a developer, I'm writing some piece of code by using the Apex programming. By using this Apex programming, I'm writing some piece of code. In order to implement a particular functionality as part of my application. So now whenever we are going to be writing this code, once the code has been getting written, then how the file will be getting saved. So this is an Apex class file that we have prepared. Then what it will be extension? What will be the extension for this class? That APX. So now as soon as once you click on that save button, after writing that piece of code, as soon as once you click on that save button, the code will be saving inside a file with the extension .apx. So I'm saving that file. I'm using that save button in order to save the code. So whatever the code that I have written, that code will be storing inside my the first platform with the extension .apx. So here the file will be available to me. So this is the file that we have. Assume that I'm having my class code called as some accounts helper .apx. So whatever the code that are written, inside your file, that Apex class file will be storing with the extension .apx. If it is a trigger, then .apx t. That means t means a trigger. If it is a Visual Force page, then .vft. If it is an object, then nobody's responding now. Object .obj. It will be having the .obj. It's an object file. Now here in this case, whenever I'm going to be saving this file after writing the code inside the editor, it may be the standard navigation, it may be the developer console also. Upon click on that save button, or if you're using that Control S, then it will be saving that code inside your first platform with the help of an extension that is .apx. It's a class file. Okay. So now once the class code is getting available, then what is that next process here? What we need to do? If the class code is available directly, can I execute this class code? No, we can't execute that class code directly. We need to compile that. So what is the process of compilation? Basically, what it will do? Okay, so it is going to be identifying the syntactical mistakes. So whatever the code that are written, it is going to be identifying for the syntactical mistakes. So that here we are having the compiler. So what is the compiler for your Apex programming right now? Apex compiler. We are having a compiler called as Apex compiler. So now what the compiler will do basically here? Compiler is going to be verifying the syntactical mistakes. Okay. Compiler is going to be verifying the syntactical mistakes. That means whatever the code that are written inside this particular file, now this file will be having the code which has been prepared based on the rules and based on the principles, based on standards, based on guidelines of Apex programming language. That means the developer has followed all the rules of Apex programming language are not upon writing this code. Suppose here upon compiling this code, if there is a syntactical mistakes will be getting arise. For example, some syntactical mistakes will be getting arise upon going to be compiling that code. Now, because of what it is raising that, compilation errors. Upon compiling the code, some errors will be getting occurred. Those errors are called as what? Runtime errors. Still we are compiling it. We are compiling the code. Upon compiling the code, if there is any errors are occurred, those are called as what? Compilation errors. So these are called as compilation errors. Compilation errors. So now it is going to be reading some errors are available, which are called as compilation errors. Upon compiling the code, it will be raising some errors. Why the compilation errors will be getting occurred generally? What might be the possible reasons? Syntactical mistakes, okay? It will be having some reasons are available. The first reason may be because of syntactical mistakes. Exceptions, runtime error. Syntactical mistakes. Lack of system resources. Okay. In order to compile the code, whatever the internal memory is required, that internal memory may not be available inside your server. So that memory has been full, or the server may not be able to respond. Compiler is not available. Okay, required components are not available. So at that time, it is going to be raising the compilation errors. So now, whenever I'm compiling the code, okay, whenever I'm compiling the code with the help of the Apex compiler, during the compilation, some errors may be getting occurred because of some syntactical mistakes, because of some system lack of resources of the system resources, it will be raising some compilation errors. Whenever compilation errors have been getting occurred, then what will happen? Code will not get saved. Okay. It will raise that exception. That means it is going to showing that compilation errors in the form of that message to you. It is showing that error message to you. Upon compilation, if there is any mistakes are available, it is going to be so displaying that error message to you directly. Your application will not be compiling ahead. It will not go ahead for that execution process. So that here, whenever I'm going to be compiling the code, if there is any syntactical mistakes are available, then the code will not be moving ahead for the execution process. Simply, it is going to be giving this error message to the developer, so that the developer will be receiving the error messages. They will be receiving that error messages directly. The code will not be moving ahead to execute that code. Immediately, it is going to be sending that error message to the developers. These are the various mistakes we have identified inside your code. So please correct these mistakes. Please modify the code. Please rectify the code, and please resubmit the code for the recompilation process again. If there is any compilation errors are available, immediately it is going to be representing the compilation errors to the developer. Code will not be moving ahead. Okay, so we can't go ahead. So in this case, whenever the compilation errors have been getting occurred, immediately your application execution will be getting stopped over there. It will be sending the error message information to the developer. These are the various mistakes have been identified inside your application. So now please correct these mistakes and please resubmit the code for the recompilation process again. Now, for example, I did the modifications inside my editor, and then I'm going to be sending this code for the compilation again. Again, my code has been compiled. Now, in this case, there is no compilation errors. Code is perfect. All the resources are available. Now, it is sending for the execution process. Now, it is executing my code. It will execute the code right now. So, how it is executing that code over here? With the help of what? Execution. How the code will be getting executed with the help of what component? Execute anonymous window. Apex runtime engine. Okay. Apex runtime engine. As part of your application execution process, we have discussed we have two components. One is Apex compiler, second one is Apex runtime engine. Apex compiler is going to be taking care of compiling the code. Apex runtime engine is going to be taking care of executing the code. Okay, once the code has been getting compiled successfully, if there is no syntactical mistakes are available, if the required system resources are available, then it is going ahead for the execution process. Now, upon executing this code, it is going to be causing some errors also. Upon executing that code, it is going to be causing some errors also. Those errors are called as what in this case? Runtime errors. Okay, these are called as runtime errors. That means upon executing the code, upon running your application, it is going to be raising some errors also. Those are called as runtime errors. These are also called as exceptions. Okay, these are also called as exceptions. You will be having the runtime errors or exceptions when upon executing the code. Upon running your code by the Apex runtime engine, may be causing some errors also, which are called as runtime errors, or these are also called as exceptions also. So now tell me what will be the possible reasons for these exceptions. Okay. Then why this kind of runtime errors will be getting occurred? Because of that wrong logic implementation. Like for example, upon writing that code, I have written that code some 10 by 0. What it will do? Exception. What kind of exception? Mathematical exception. I am unable to perform this operation because we can't divide the number by 0. Okay. Now, next one. Governor limits. Okay. Might be you have written some code which is hitting the governor limit also, because I might be have written some SOQL queries or DML statements or SOSL queries inside the for loop, which is going to be executing more number of times, which is reaching to the governor limit. Okay. Next. Wrong input values. Wrong input values applied. That means illegal assignments. There is a field called as a numerical field. For that one, I am assigning the string value. Because of that, it is going to be raising some exception also. So missing the values for the required fields also. There are some mandatory fields are available for which we need to supply the value, but unfortunately by mistake I did not supply the value for one of the mandatory field. Because of that, here it is going to be raising some exception also. Like that, you will be having so many reasons will be available, okay, in order to get that runtime errors, that these are also called as exceptions. Okay, it is going to be raising that exceptions. Because of these possible reasons, it is going to be raising that exceptions also. Okay, now then how can we handle this kind of exception? Then what do you mean by this exception basically? How can we define an exception? Unexpected. Okay. When coming to the exception, exception is nothing but an undesired behavior or an unexpected behavior of an application at runtime. Not at the compilation time, at the time of running that application, it is behaving different. So I have clicked on that save button, it has to save, but it is showing the message over. This is an unexpected thing. Why? Because of my mistake. What is that my mistake here? I did not supply the value for one of the mandatory. Or there is an annual revenue field is there. In that one, I have entered some characters also. Because of that, it is unable to save the record. It is showing some exceptions to me. So that means what here? When coming to the exception, exception is nothing but an undesired behavior of an application or an unexpected behavior of an application at a time. Whenever we are executing the piece of code, okay, upon executing the piece of code, if the application is executing in a different manner, okay, if it is executing in a different manner, that means here, because of some wrong logic, because of some donor limits also, it is going to be causing some issues which are called as runtime errors or exceptions. Okay, now, so now tell me, whenever an exception is getting occurred, then what will happen? What will happen whenever an exception has been occurred? Okay.
program will be executed, but the particular operation will not be.
Program will execute it.
It will be compiled.
It is the compiled one. Okay, fine.
But there will be
No output. Okay. Then, how do you know there is some exceptions has been occurred?
showing message.
It will be showing that message. So now, upon showing the message, before showing the message, what it will do? Conditional statements. Okay, we can handle that. Generally, if an exception has been getting occurred, what will happen? Program will stop. Okay, right? In this case, whenever I'm going to be executing some piece of code, whenever an exception has been getting occurred, immediately the application execution will be getting stopped there itself. That means abnormal termination of your application will be getting happened. Abnormal termination. That means it will be stopping the application execution there itself. Remaining statements will not be getting executed. Abnormal termination of your application will be getting happened. And then it will show the error message to you in the technical terms. Okay, it will show the error message in the technical terms. Like for example, it is showing that exception system.limit exception or like a mixed DML operation exception. Suppose if I'm showing the same message to the normal end user, will those people will be able to understand what is limit exception, what is mixed DML operation? The people don't know. As a developer, we can understand this. Because we are the technical people, we know that we have written this code. So upon writing the code, we have to follow some rules. We have to follow some principles of the programming language. But in this case, because we haven't followed those rules, so that it is causing some exceptions also. So in this case, whenever an exception has been getting occurred, abnormal termination of the application will be getting happened, then immediately it is going to showing the exception message to you in the technical terms. Now, in this case, we can raise a question. So suppose, for example, if I'm executing this code by using my execute anonymous window, I can able to see the error message. Suppose if the same code is available inside a trigger, the code I have written inside the trigger we are invoking manually? No, it's an automatic process. Upon executing the triggers, an exception has been occurred. Then how do we know that? I'm having a batch class. I'm having a schedule class. Upon executing that code, some exceptions has been getting occurred. Okay, it will send the email notification automatically, right? So whenever I'm going to be executing some business logic in the form of either Visual Force pages also, in the form of triggers, in the form of batch classes, schedule classes, these are executing internally in the background. So at that time, upon executing the piece of code, if any exception has been getting occurred, it will be terminating your application abnormally there itself. Whatever the exception information is available, it will collect that all this exception information, writing inside an email notification. That email notification will be sending to the system administrator automatically by default. Okay, whatever the system administrator is available, not to the developer, not to the end user's email ID, not to the user's email ID, it will be sending the email notification to the administrator's account automatically by default. Okay, administrator's account. How Salesforce will know he is the administrator over there? He is the administrator. How the Salesforce will know? When you go to your organization object, there is a information called as primary contact. Okay, when you go to your organization object, in that organization object, you will be having a primary contact. Like when you go to that, organization object, we can track our organization details over here. Select the ID of that organization, name, primary contact from organization. Now, in this case, it is indicating that this is the ID of my organization, which is starting with a 00D. This is the name of my organization. He is a primary contact. That means he is the administrator over here. For this particular organization, he is the administrator. So it will go to that user. Okay, it will go to the primary contact. That means this is the user here. It will go to that user record. In that user record, whatever the email ID is available to this email ID, to send the email notification automatically with your exception message. Whatever the exception has been getting occurred, that exception will be sending to the system administrator through an email notification. Upon executing your batch class, upon executing schedule class, upon executing trigger, if there is any exceptions have been getting occurred, those will be sending to you through in the form of an email notification to the Salesforce administrator. Okay, this is the internal functionality of Salesforce. Okay. So now here in this case, whenever an exception has been getting occurred, abnormal termination of the application will be getting happened. It will collect that exception information. We will sending that information to that particular administrator automatically by default. Okay. Clear? Now. So now here in this case, how this exception handling will be getting handled, we'll see practically. Whenever we are having any exceptions are available inside your application, how to handle these exceptions. In order to handle the exceptions available inside your application, Salesforce has given a feature called as exception handling mechanism. Okay, we are using a feature called as exception handling mechanism. Previously, during our conditional statements of Apex programming, already we have discussed that to handle that exception, we have two ways are available here. Okay, two ways are available. One is conditional statement, second one is exception handling mechanism. So that feature we have used that conditional statements we have used to add some proper conditions to avoid the exceptions. Why? Because that everybody knows that prevention is better than cure. Okay, so that here instead of facing that exception, let them start to get the exceptions first. Try to avoid to get the exceptions. Okay, try to get the avoid the exceptions first. Okay, so now here in this case here. Okay, now here in this case. Now, in this case here, we have used the actually called as conditional statements. Through those conditional statements, we are going to be avoiding those kind of problems. Okay, we are avoiding those kind of problems. That means we are taking some conditions. We are adding some checks so that we can able to avoid the exceptions over here first. But we haven't written any code to handle the exception. If the exception has been getting occurred, how to handle? We haven't written that. But we have taken some precautions to avoid those things. Okay, we have taken some precautions to avoid those things over with the help of conditional statements. Even though if I'm taking some precautions, if exceptions have been getting occurred, then what we can do? Then what we can do in this case? Then, even though after taking the precautions, also some exceptions have been getting occurred, then at that time, in order to handle those exceptions, we are going to be using a feature called as exception handling mechanism. We have to use a feature called as exception handling mechanism. We are using that exception handling mechanism. With the help of this exception handling mechanism, we can able to handle the exception. So now, how can we handle the exceptions? For that one, as part of this exception handling mechanism, we are going to be using the 3 blocks. As part of Apex programming, it is providing the 3 blocks to you in order to handle those exceptions. To handle those exceptions, we are using the 3 blocks. What are those 3 blocks? Now we'll see practically in this case. What are those 3 blocks? I think few people might be aware of this. In Java programming, C programming, is right. Try block, catch block, finally. So these are the 3 blocks are available. Okay, whenever we are going to be handling the exceptions. So in the entry point of view, there is a question: how can you handle the exception? In order to handle the exceptions, we are going to be using the 3 blocks. That is try block, catch block, and then finally. These are the 3 blocks are available through which we can able to handle the exceptions. Then what exactly the try block, what exactly catch block, what exactly finally block, we'll see practically. Okay. Clear up to this one? What exactly compilation error? What exactly the exception error? How to handle the exceptions? Why the exceptions will be getting aroused? Okay. So in this case, whenever an exception has been getting occurred, then abnormal termination of the application will be getting happened. Okay, that means it won't continue to execute the records. The remaining process will not be getting continued. It will stop executing that whole process. It is going to be raising that exception message to you in the technical terms. But the people may not be able to understand the technical terms. The technical message the people may not be able to understand. So at that time, as a developer, it is our responsibility upon writing the code, we need to handle those exceptions also. That means writing the code in such a manner, upon executing that code, if any exceptions has been getting occurred, then my code should be able to handle that. It has to show some information to the people which can be understandable by even a non-technical person also. That means I don't want to show the technical message to the developers. I want to show a meaningful information which can be very easy to understandable by the people itself. So that they can able to correct their mistakes, they can able to enter the proper inputs, they can able to run the application as it is, okay, without any abnormal terminations. Okay, that facility will be available to you over here. So not only handling that exception, we can able to show the custom messages also. So whenever we are going to that exceptions, basically we have two types of exceptions available in Salesforce. Okay, we have two types of exceptions are available in your Apex programming. So what are those two types of exceptions? Okay, now let's see practically. When coming to that exceptions, we have two types are available. We are having the two types of exceptions are available here inside your Apex programming. Types of exceptions. We are having two types are available. What are those? From the beginning, same story. Standard and custom, same. We are having the standard exceptions and we are having the custom exceptions also. We are having the two types of exceptions are available inside this. The first one is the standard exceptions. These are also called as system defined exceptions also. Standard exceptions. And the second one is custom exception. That means these are also called as user defined exception. These are system defined and then user defined. Custom exception. These are the two types of exceptions are available inside your Apex programming. We are having standard exceptions. These are also called as system defined. System defined exceptions. And the second one is user defined exceptions. Okay, user defined exceptions. We can call it as system defined exceptions or standard exceptions both. Second one, user defined or custom exception. That means we are going to be preparing those exceptions. Okay, now. So in this case, what do you mean by standard exceptions or system defined? Ready-made exceptions. Okay, ready-made exceptions. Each and every exception will be available in the form of a class. That already told you from the beginning here. What are the data types that we have inside your Apex programming, even though it may be a primitive data type also. It may be integer, double, decimal, date, string, account, contact, whatever, anything. Each and every functionality is available to you in the form of a class. So here also, exceptions are also available in the form of the class. So in this case, we are having that so many exception classes are available, which have been given by Salesforce by default. Now, can you give me some of the exception class names? That is to add some message, madam. DML exception, okay. Field value, no, we don't have any specific name for that field value exception. Limit exception, okay. Null pointer exception. System exception means what? Yeah. Now, let's see. So now standard exceptions are system defined means Salesforce is providing so many ready-made exception classes to you by default. Those are called as standard exceptions. Like for example, Let me show you practically. For example, I'm creating a record here inside my object. Account some ACC equals to new account. I'm inserting the record here. Can I execute like this? Why? We haven't supplied the value for that name field. Name is a mandatory field. Now click on execute button. What happened in this case? System.dml exception. So inside that system namespace, we have a class called as the DML exception. That means upon performing the DML operation, it is causing some exception that we are unable to perform the DML operation. The record cannot be inserted because there is a custom validation is there which has been filed. Okay, where you missed to supply the value for one of the field, that is annual revenue. So that it is going to be raising that exception called as DML exception. Okay, it is raising the DML exception now. It causes the DML exception, right? For example, assume that I'm querying some data from my object. Select ID of the record, name, location from hiring manager. I would like to store this data inside a record. What will happen in this case? If I'm executing this piece of code, how many records my query will return? Multiple. Where we are storing that in a single record. Is it possible to accommodate all the records? No. It is going to be raising an exception. It is raising an exception system.query exception. Okay, it is raising that query exception, which is indicating list has more than one row for assignment to a subject. That means here this collection is going to be, this query is returning multiple records, but you are trying to be storing inside a single subject type of variable. That cannot be happen. That cannot be possible. So it is raising an exception, query exception. Okay. Now, so now here in this case, it is causing that. It causes the query exception. Okay. It causes the query exception. Now, next one. I want to perform some DML. I want to perform some mathematical operation. System.debug. I want to show division result is. I'm performing some 10 by 0. What will happen in this case? It is raising an exception called as math exception. Because here I'm unable to perform this mathematical operation because we can't divide a number by 0. Okay? It causes the math exception. For example, I'm having an array. String array, st equals to new string array. I'm having some India. I'm having some. I'm having the string in this one. I'm having the in the string array. I'm having 2 elements are available. Now this element will be available at the index position what? 0 or 1? 0. This will be 1. Now I'm printing the values. System.debug. First the element is I'm getting the str 0. Second element is str 1. I'm fetching the third element also in this case. Now tell me really third element is available here? No, but I'm trying to fetch. What will happen in this case? Let's see. Click on execute highlighted. It is raising an exception called as list exception. That means what? List index out of bounds 2. That means whatever the index number that were given 2 that is not available. The range is from 0 to 1 only. as of now, but this is that more than that range, so that it is indicating list the index out of bounds exception, that is second index position is not at all available inside my collection, so it is raising that exception to you. Okay. List exception. For example, I am going to fetching the value string some st. Okay, as string I would like to specify some customer name. I want to fetch the data here. Value exists. Customer name dot index of. I would like to specify st. I would like to specify that. So what exactly that string? Nothing but st. So now I'm going to be searching for this particular index position. For example, I'm indicating like as an AB. So now I would like to find out for the index position over here. So in this case, what happened here? It is going to raising an exception type called as what? Null pointer exception. That means what here? Now when coming to the particular string variable, nothing is there. Just have defined the variable. Whenever I'm defining the variable, by default, Salesforce will store the value null. But from that null, you are trying to pick up some value. The value is not available. That is purely null. From that null, I can't get any value here. But because here you are searching for some elements here based on that character some AB. But the elements are not available. That is purely null. I'm referring to the null so that it is raising that exception system dot null pointer exception. Okay, system dot null pointer exception. For example, I'm going to be writing the SO cable queries. Integer some counter equals to 1, counter less than or equals to some 120, counter plus plus. I'm writing some SO cable query. List of account. Select ID, comma, name from account. Now what it will do? What kind of exception it will raise now? Query exception? No. 101. Okay. Then what is that name? Name of that exception? No. Limit exception. It is going to be raising that limit exception. That means we are crossing the limit. We can't write more than 100 SQL queries. But the for loop is repeating for 120 times. Once you click on executed, it is raising that exception called as system dot limit exception. Too many SQL queries. 101. These are the various exception classes which has been given by Salesforce. Okay, these are all our standard exception classes given by Salesforce. Okay, like we are having DML exception, query exception, math exception, list exception, null pointer exception, limit exception. It's a common question in every interview. Upon writing the code inside your project, what kind of exceptions you have faced? If you said that no, though I haven't faced any exception, it's a confirm you haven't worked on that Salesforce. You are not a genuine guy, you are a fake person. Because every developer, every day, in every half an hour, definitely they will face some problem with the exception. Okay, so that here, whenever if they ask any question like as what kind of exception you have faced inside your project, then you can say these are the various common exceptions which we generally use to face upon writing the code. Like as some limit exceptions, null pointer exceptions, and then system list exception, mathematical exceptions, query exceptions, DML exception. These are all the various exceptions. Along with that, mixed DML operation exception. Okay, you will be having that view state exceptions are also available. All these things you have to list it out. Okay, we have listed out all these exceptions. These are the various problems we use to follow upon writing the code. Okay, without pressing the problem, we can't develop the applications at all. There's no possibility. So that we have to explain all these kinds of exceptions. Okay, so now in this case, every developer will be facing these kind of exceptions commonly every day, in every hour also. Okay, so these are all the various standard exceptions which has been given by Salesforce. Okay, but each and every exception is nothing but a class. List exception is a class. Null pointer exception is a class. List exception is a limit exception, and then math exception, query exception, DML exception. These are all nothing but the ready-made classes which has been given by Salesforce. Each and every exception is nothing but a class. Okay, each and every exception is nothing but a class. Okay, clear? Now, so now here in this case, you observe this one. Okay, let me use one small clue in this case. So now, whenever you are observing this exception names, now is there any specific, like as the similarity have you identified here? For example, forget about that system. Inside that exception names, have you identified any similarity here? What is that? These are all exceptions. Okay, fine. Then in those names, what similarity we have identified? DML exception, query exception, list exception, limit exception. Now, what is the similarity here? Every exception class name has been ends with the word what? Exception. Okay. So now each and every exception class name is ending with the post-fixing brace exception. Like the similar way, if you are preparing your own exceptions also, your exception class also has to be ends with the word exception. It's a fundamental principle. Upon preparing your own exception by your own, that exception class name should be always ends with that exception. Okay, always ends with the word exception. It's a fundamental principle upon preparing that exceptions. Now these are all concerned in a class called as exception class. Okay, the exception is the standard class here. For example, we are having a class called as exception. It's a base class. Okay, it's a base class which is root for all the exception classes. Okay, whatever the exception classes are available for all the exception classes, this is the root class. Now inside this class only we are having the remaining classes are available here. We are having that exception classes. It may be standard, it may be custom exception class also. Like for example, we have identified so many exception classes as of now. Like as we have identified DML exception, limit exception, and then list exception, query exception, math exception, null pointer exception. Like that. These are all the childs of exception class. Exception is the base class. So now for this exception class, what is the base again? System class. For the system class, what is the base again? Object. That already told you in our starting classes of Apex programming itself, object is the base class for the entire Apex program. Upon implementing that Apex programming, they have implemented the first class that is object. Not only for the Apex programming, especially when you go to Java also, for the entire Java programming, the base class is object. When you go to .NET also, for the entire .NET programming, the base class is object. Like the similar way for your Salesforce also, the base class is object. Inside that base class, you'll be having system class. Below that system class, we are having exception. In that one, we are having that standard exception classes, which has been given the Salesforce. Like the similar way, we can able to raise your own, we can able to create your own exception class also. Okay, that facility is available. Okay, now. So in this case here, we can able to specify here. We can able to prepare your own exception classes also. Like whenever the customer is going to be, okay, whenever the customer is going to be applying for a loan, he might be entering some different type over. So at that time, invalid loan type exception. Invalid loan type exception. Okay, invalid loan type exception. We can able to specify the exception names also. It depends upon your requirement. And then we can able to specify that exceptions also over here, like as insufficient funds exception. Insufficient funds exception. Okay, like that here we can able to prepare our own exceptions also depends upon your requirement. But whenever we are going to be creating your own exceptions also, okay, your own exceptions also, your exception class name should be always ends with the word exception. Okay, clear? No. Not required. No need of underscore. Clear? Now, so in this case, let's see here, for example. So how to raise some exceptions, how to handle them with the help of the try, catch, and then finally blocks. We'll see practically now. For example, I'm writing a small class. I'm preparing a class, exception handler. Inside this class, I'm going to be writing some piece of code. Public static void. Now, I would like to specify that piece of code division operation. Okay, I'm passing some values. Integer x comma integer y. Here I'm indicating the system.debug. Values are, I'm indicating that x. I'm indicating that I'm giving some space. I'm giving that value y. I'm performing that here. Division result is I want to show. Before that, I'm going to be defining that integer result equals to x by y. And I'm showing the result. So this is the small piece of code that I have written inside my class. I prepared a class, exception handler. In that class, I prepared a method, okay, division operation. I'm passing two numerical values, and based on these two numerical values, I would like to perform the division operation. I want to show the results. Okay, now. So now here in this case, let's see practically what will happen. I'm trying to be executing this piece of code. I'm invoking this class code. So what is my class name? Exception handler. division operation. I'm passing the value 100. I'm passing the value 5. I'm passing correct values. Click on execute. The request has been sent to the server. It will perform the operations, and we can see the result inside my debug log file. We can able to see that values are 100 and then 5. Both the values are available. I'm able to see the result of our operation also during this. Sometimes I'm passing the value 0. When you click on execute, what will happen? The exception has been occurred. Okay, exception has been occurred. So your operation has been cancelled by Salesforce. Your application execution has been terminated. Okay, your application execution has been terminated. So because of that, you can't able to see that log file also. No log file also in this case. Okay, we can't able to see that log file also. Log file will not be generated because once execution has been done, then only it is going to be preparing the log file. But in this case, we can't see that log file also. Log file also will not be generated by Salesforce. Okay, so now here in this case here, so why the exception has been getting occurred? Because of passing the second number value as 0. Okay, so where this exception has been getting occurred, exception has been occurred inside this particular method. Okay, method. So what will happen in this case? Whenever it is unable to perform the operation, what will happen in this case? What is that flow? What is that flow will happen in this case? For example, come to a general scenario. Assume that, okay, assume that, so I'm going from Hyderabad to, okay, some Vijayawada, okay, with my bike. So now whenever we are reaching to that Kodara, nearby that place, suddenly we meet an accident. There are some major injuries. Okay, so in this case, what will happen generally? What will happen? Then, unexpected thing has been occurred. Then what will happen? What will happen generally in that case? Okay, we are going to hospital. Okay, now, so now how can you go to the hospital? You can't wake up because there are some major injuries are available. Then that's what I'm expecting. That means what here in this case, what happened? Okay, whenever a major accident has been occurred during a specific location, then we need to be contact the people to whom we have to make a call to a nearby police station, and then because to inform them there is a major accident has been occurred in this place, and then we'll inform to that ambulance also. Who will do that here? Nearby the people. Nearby the people. That means like the similar way what happened in this case, whenever I'm going to be executing some piece of code, okay, whenever I'm executing some piece of code, inside this method, whenever if any unexpected thing will be happened, that means in this operation, unexpected thing will be getting happened here. At that time, we have to inform to whom, to the Apex runtime, why we are unable to handle this one here. Okay, we are unable to handle this one. Who is going to be informing to the Apex runtime engine? So now that respective local people, whenever an accident has been getting occurred in a particular location, the nearby people, nothing but the local people responsible to inform to that police station as well as the ambulance also. Like the similar way, whatever the method in which the exception has been occurred, that method will be responsible to inform to the Apex runtime. There is an exception has been getting occurred in this particular method. There are some wrong logic is available. So please handle this code. I'm unable to handle this one. Okay, so it is informing to that Apex runtime. Apex runtime engine is going to be handling that. Who will inform that respective method? Which method? This is the method in which the exception has been occurred. This method is responsible. Okay, this method is going to be informing to the Apex runtime that there is an exception has been getting occurred. We are unable to handle this kind of code. So exception has been occurred. So please handle this exception. Now in this case, what they will do here? Now, whenever the people informing to the police people, they will come to the location. They will do the necessary investigation over here. How the accident has happened, okay, whose mistake it is. They're going to be cross-checking all the things. Like the similar way, now the Apex runtime is going to be entering into the picture. It will verify that here why this exception has been getting occurred. Do we have any alternative ways are available to handle this exception or not? It will cross-check. So for that, it is looking for that exception handling mechanism. Okay, it is looking for that exception handling mechanism inside this one. Then how can we handle these kind of exceptions over here? Do we have any exception handling mechanism in this case? No. If there is no exception handling mechanism available inside this one, immediately it is going to be terminating that application. Immediately it will be terminating that application. Okay. If there is an exception handling is available, then it will be trying to execute that piece of code. Okay, it will be trying to be executing the piece of code. Like here, for example, whenever an accident has been getting occurred, the local police people will be coming to the location. They will verify that here. They will inform to the respective relatives of that particular people. The people who met with that accident here, they are going to inform it to their relatives over so that they can come to that place. Okay, so like the similar way here also, they are going to be, it is looking for that, do we have an exception handling code is available or not? If it is not available, simply it is going to be terminating this application, showing that exception message, system.map exception. Here, I'm unable to handle the code. There's no handling mechanism. Okay, clear? If there is any handling mechanism is available, it will be executing that piece of code. Then how can we handle these kind of exceptions over here? Okay, how can we handle these kind of exceptions? So now here in this case, to handle the exceptions, we are using the three blocks which has been given by Salesforce, that is called as try block, catch block, and then finally block. Finally block. These are the three blocks are available here. We have to use the try block and the catch block and the finally block here. In this case, we are using the try block, catch block, and the finally block. Okay. Three blocks are available over here. Try block and the catch block and the finally block. So then what exactly each and every block indicates? Try block in the sense what? Not try to analyze the exception. So simply in one word, I can say, okay, try block is nothing but it's a dangerous zone. Okay, like whenever I'm going on the roads, in some places there will be having some crossings are available. They are indicating some boards to you. Okay, accident prohibition area, accident prone areas are available, or dangerous zone is available. So don't go into that. Go slowly, like as a 30 km speed or 10 km speed, like that. They're indicating. They might be having some schools are available, okay, in that particular area. So we have to go with the low speed. Okay, we can't go with the higher speed. So here, because here so many people are passing through that area, so many children are also passing through this area, so that please go a bit slowly. So in this case, like the similar way here also, it is indicating that this is a dangerous zone where exactly exceptions may be getting occurred. So that means whatever the statements we have written inside your application, from which you are expecting the exception, okay, from which you are expecting the exceptions, that piece of code we have to write inside that try block. Try block contains a risky code. Okay, simply we can say risky code. That means whatever the code that have written, whatever the statements that are written, from which the exceptions may be getting occurred. I'm not sure it may get exception. It may be occurred over. There are possibilities. There are some possibilities are available to get some exception. So in this case, whatever the risky code is available, the risky code we can able to place inside that try block. So that inside the try block, we have to write the code from which we are expecting the exceptions. Okay, now write the code from which we are expecting the exception. Okay, so we have to write that code over here. Okay, so now whenever we are having any crossings are available, okay, whenever we are having some crossing upon going on the road, if there is any accident prone area is available, there the police people are going to be appointing some security people over there, like a traffic constable. Okay, so now please control those people. Maybe the people will be going with a faster speed, which may be causing some accidents here. So now for that reason here, so now they are going to be appointing some people. That means who are going to be handling that. In that particular places, they are going to be placing one ambulance also here. They can able to use in the emergency cases. So like the similar way here also, now we can able to place a catch block. That means if there is an exception has been getting occurred, Okay, by mistake, because of some wrong values, because of some wrong logic, if any exception has been getting occurred, I need to handle that here. To handle that, they are going to be using that catch block. Catch block is used to catch the exception and we can able to handle that. Okay, catch block is used to handle the exception over. For that one, we have to write that handling code. We have to write that exception handling code. How can we handle that? What kind of exception it has been getting occurred? We can specify that exception right here. Now, here I am indicating that. So now I am going to be indicating the exceptions. Upon using the catch block, we have to specify what type of exceptions you would like to handle that. Okay, what kind of exceptions you would like to handle in this case. Okay, now let's see. For that one, we can specify the exception type. That means exception class name. And then we can specify the reference. What type of exception this catch block can able to handle. Okay, we can able to indicate. So whenever there is an exception has been getting occurred, then we can able to handle that exception by using the catch block. Catch block is going to be calling that exception over here. Now here we will be handling that exception. Once exception handling has been done, finally if you want to release any resources, then we can able to go with that finally block. Finally block is used to release all the resources which are used inside the application. To release all the resources. Like as collections, any objects we have prepared, those we can able to make it as null, because here we are not going to be utilizing that anymore, so that we would like to make it as null. To release all the resources. Concepts are not new. These are very related to the human life cycle only. Nothing else, nothing different. Done? Now. So now here in this case, let's see how can we handle this one. How can we write this a piece of code? We'll see practically. For example, here I have written some piece of code. I'm going to be performing the division operation over here by passing the value, second number value as 0. That means what? Now, this statement may be causing some exception also. When if I'm passing some wrong values. If I'm passing some wrong values, this statement may be causing some exceptions here. So that I'm writing this a piece of code inside the try block. That means whatever the statements are available from which you are expecting the exceptions, we can able to write that piece of code inside the try block. Okay, inside the try block, we can able to write that piece of code here. For example, I'm defining this variable outside. Now, so now tell me what kind of exceptions will get around. What kind of exception? DML exception? Math exception. Then how can we specify? Catch block. Catch block. What kind of exception you would like to handle now in this case? System dot math exception. Okay. Now math exception. I'm indicating. We can able to show that message here. I'm handling that code. So now you will indicate that your math exception has been occurred. Okay. Math exception has been occurred. So now here in this case, it is indicating that math exception has been occurred. So now here in this case, what happened? So now whatever the statement that we are writing here, from which we are expecting the exception, those statements I'm writing inside the try block. Like as your SQL table queries, DML statement operations, okay? All these things we have to write inside the try block, because here from any one of that line of code, it may be causing some exception also. Okay, so in this case, whatever the statements are available from which you are expecting the exceptions, write that piece of code inside the try block, and then we can able to handle those exceptions by using that respective catch block over here. Okay, now let me execute this piece of code right now. I'm passing the value right. Click on execute. Are we able to get any message here? No. Previously, it is showing that exception message to you, system.math exception. We can't go ahead, application termination has been happened. Okay, but in this case, what happened? We have handled that exception over. Debug log also has been generated. Go to the debug log. It is indicating the values are 100 and 0. Math exception has been occurred. Division result value is. Okay, that means what? We are going to be completing the application with the graceful termination. Graceful termination means what here? Even though some exceptions have been getting occurred, handle those exceptions and come to the remaining steps as it is. Continue with the remaining process, like as a partial processing mechanism. Continue with the remaining operations also as it is, and then we can able to complete the graceful termination of the application with the help of this exception handling mechanism. Previously, when the exception has been occurred, it is not showing any, which has a debug log file, it is not going to be executing the remaining lines of code. Simply it is showing the message system.math exception debug equals 0. But now we are able to execute the remaining lines of code also. Okay, clear? Now, so in this case, we can able to use that try block and the catch block, and then we can use finally block also optional here. Finally block is not mandatory, but compulsorily we have to use that catch block. I will come to that point. I'm coming to that. No, for example. Because here, whenever this exception has been occurred, nothing but math operation. You see the mathematical operation here. Whenever the exception has been getting occurred, it will create that exception class object. It will passing to that the Apex runtime engine. This is the exception has been getting occurred. Now the Apex runtime engine is going to be collecting that object to verify with this exception type. Do we have any catch block is exist or not? If the catch block is exist, it will be executing this respective catch block. It will be handling that exception. Okay, that means this catch block can able to handle only mathematical exceptions. Now, for example, here I'm writing some code like this. Account sum is equals to new account. I'm using that. Insert this. What will happen? I'm not passing any value for this syntax. I'm passing the value from 10. Click on execute. What happened? DML exception. Then what we can do? How to handle this exception also then? Then what we can do? Here, system.DML exception. For example, here, in this case, if I'm passing this value 0, then do we need to modify the code again? Okay, DML exception to like as math exception. Can I handle multiple exceptions? Yes. So now what kind of exception it will cause? I don't know. It may be causing DML exception, it may be causing math exception also. Sometimes both may be getting arised. So in this case here, we can able to handle the multiple exceptions also. Catch block, another catch block to handle the DML exception. System.DML exception. DML exception, DML exception. I want to show that message. System.debug. Now DML exception has been occurred. Okay. DML exception has been occurred. So now here we can able to write this a piece of code in this case. The DML exception has been occurred inside this. That means when I try to insert the record inside my object, it is unable to insert because inside this object some mandatory fields are there for which I did not supply the value, so that it is unable to handle this kind of thing. So now let me pass that value. Okay, I'm passing the value 10. Click on execute. Now it is executing as it is. It will show the message DML exception has been occurred by showing the flag file. Now it is indicating the DML exception has been occurred, so we are unable to perform it. Okay, so that means what? when coming to an application, we can able to write one try block and the multiple catch blocks also. Why? Because what kind of exception it will occur, we don't know. So for that reason, we have to handle those exceptions also. For that one, for one try block, we can have multiple catch blocks also, not only one multiple catch blocks also. That facility will be available to you here in this case. Okay. Now, in this case here, for example, apart from this one, a different exception has been occurred. Then how we handle this? The different exception has been occurred. At that time, finally, we can able to add the generic exception class, that is system dot exception. System dot debug generic exception has been. That means exception is the standard class which can able to handle any kind of exception. Okay, it can able to handle any kind of exception. Clear? So that here in this case, for one try block, we can able to have multiple catch blocks also. Okay, for one try block, we can have multiple catch blocks also. In each catch block, we can able to handle one specific type of exceptions inside your application. Okay, clear? Now, so in this case, upon fetching this information, not only showing this one, at what line number this exception has been occurred, I want to track that information. So that I want to indicate. System dot debug. What is the exception message I want to know? Exception message is I want to do. DML exception dot get message. We can able to get that exception message also. Why the exception has been getting occurred? What is that exception mean? We can specify. What is the cause? We can able to fetch that. Exception reason. DML exception dot get cause. Why that exception has been occurred? The reason. System dot debug. Now exception line number. That means that what line number this exception has been occurred. I want to know that. DML exception dot get line number. System dot debug exception stack trace string. Stack trace string. You will be having the DML exception dot get a stack trace string. We can able to get this information. Okay, all this information we can able to track why the exception has been getting occurred, what is the reason, because of which field the exception has been occurred, everything we can able to track. For example, system dot debug exception affected fields. DML exception get fields. Get the DML fields. That means what kind of fields are going to be causing this exception. DML exception get cause, get the field information also we can be able to fetch. And then get type of exception and the message also. And then these are the various ready-made methods we are going to use generally in order to handle those exceptions. Nobody is expecting that parameter, the index parameter, that is it. Yes. But the stack trace thing is a bit important upon tracking that exception. Okay. Because it is indicating the complete flow where exactly the exception has been occurred, from where to where the exception has been occurred, it will be indicating the complete track flow. Why? Because this, for example, let me show you that. I'm writing the code like this. Public static void do DML operations. Here I'm indicating that one more method. Public static get records or show message. Here I'm calling this method inside. Here I'm showing some message here. System.debug do DML operations method. I'm calling the show message. Here I'm showing system.debug show message method. And then I'm calling the division operation. $100, or 100, some file, whatever. So in this case, here I'm going to be having the chaining process in this case. I'm having the chaining process. Now I'm calling this method over here. So whenever I'm calling this a do DML operation, what it will do, it will invoke this method. Internally, this method is going to be invoking the show message. This method is invoking the division operation method. This method is causing this exception. If you want to get this complete flow, then we have to use that method called as get a stack trace string. By using that, we can able to track this information. Now let me execute this piece of code. Do DML operations. Select that one. It is indicating that custom validations has been occurred. DML statements has been getting occurred over here. Now, so it is indicating that we are having that class called as exception handler classes. Now division operation. Okay, division operation method which has been invoking that actual exception inside this. Division operation. Here's a message. This is the exception which has been getting occurred. Now, so we can able to track that information also over here. So in this case, we can able to see that. So now it is calling that exception. We are having that method. What is the flow of this method right now? It is indicating the. Let me show you. First of all, it is calling the do DML operations, and then it is going for the show message, and then it is going for the division operation exception. Now let's see in this case. Go to that debug log file. We can able to see that. Initially, it has called the do DML operations method, and from there it is calling that show message at the line number 13 in the column 1. Internally, it is going to be calling this division operation here at the line number 26. It has caused that exception. So we can able to track the complete flow from which method to which method it has been. Okay, the track that functionality and then where exactly exception has been occurred. It is indicating that. So the class has been executed perfectly. This is also executed perfectly. But now here exception stack trace has been getting occurred. We are going to finding out that exception here. That is division operation method. Inside that line number 26 in the column 1, the exception has been occurred. Okay, so this is the topmost method. Now, when you observe this one here, it is like a single one, but it's indicating that exception method first. Okay, and then below that what method has been called, it will be indicating that chronological order. Okay, so now this is the method where exactly the exception has been occurred. This is the method where exactly operation has been exception has been occurred. This method has been invoked by whom? Okay, show message. Now this method is invoked by whom? Do DML operation. So it is going to be tracking internally one by one, so that we can able to track this stack trace string with the help of this one. So this is the method where exactly exception has been occurred, division operation method. This method has been invoked by the show message method. This method has been invoked by do DML operations. So that here with the stack trace we can able to track this information also. Okay, depends upon your requirement, we can able to access this functionalities also. Whatever the methods are required, all the methods you can able to track inside this. Okay, clear? For example, here DML operation has been DML exception has been getting occurred in this place over here. Now, after this one, okay, after this one here I have written some piece of code. For example, I have written some example. System.debug now end of the statement. I written some piece of code. So now observe the scenario here in this. So now here I have written this functionality inside the try block. I have written some statement which is not causing any exception because I'm passing the correct values 100, 5. I'm passing that. Then it is going to be trying to be executing the account record insertion. It will be getting failed. So immediately it will go to the respective catch block. That means DML's exception catch block. It is going to be executing this method. After executing this method, then what it will do? Will it come back to this one? Will it come back to this statement or not? Yes, whether this statement will be executed or not. End of statement. I'm executing this piece of code. If the statement has been executed here anywhere,
No.
why? Why? For example, come to a general scenario. Assume that I'm planning for a travel, okay, from Hyderabad to Bangalore. I paid for the train tickets. Train tickets are not available. Okay, it is showing that train tickets are not available. So I went for a bus ticket. Okay, so now after reserving the bus ticket, will you look for the train tickets again? No, because already my operation is done. I don't go back to the train operation. So here also, whenever an exception has been getting occurred, it will go to the respective catch block. It will execute that catch block over here. It won't come back again here. Okay, it won't come back to the try block again because this is the risky code. From that risky code, from the dangerous zone, I came outside. Okay, I came outside. I have handled this particular operation over here. From there, it won't go into the dangerous zone again over here. It won't go back to that block. Once the operation has been done, that means whenever I'm performing the operation, if there is an exception has been occurred, then whatever the respective catch block is available, the catch block will be getting executed. But again, it won't go back to the try block again. Okay, it won't go back to the try block. It will execute the catch block. After that, if you want to do anything, then you can write inside that final block. It won't go back to the try block again. Once the catch block has been executed, then it won't go back to the try block again. Okay. Clear? So these are the points are available which are important as part of that interview point of view. Okay. Now, so now here in this case, let's see. So now, what are the various scenarios where the try block and the catch block and the finally blocks will be getting executed over here? For example, I'm having that finally block also. Finally block. I'm making it as a scenario. Is within the block, right? Now, so in this case, let's see. Now let's see the flow of execution of this try and the catch and the finally block. Now, so now in this case, try block is executing right now. Okay. Now there is no exception. Okay. There is no exception. If there is no exceptions, will it go to the catch blocks here? No. Directly what it will go? Finally block. It will be executing finally block. Try block and then finally block. It won't go to that catch block here because there is no exceptions as well. Next, second scenario. So it is executing the try block. some exception has been occurred. Okay, some exception has been occurred. Then it will be checking for the respective catch block. Catch block has been found. It has executed the catch block. Then finally block will execute or not? Yes. Okay, finally block will be executed. Suppose, for example, come to the third case. Try block is executing the statements. There is some exception has been occurred. Corresponding catch block is not available. Then will the finally will be executed or not? Yes. Okay, executing here automatically. That means what in all the cases, observe the cases here. No exceptions, it will be executing finally. Exception with the respective catch block, finally will execute. Exceptions without catch block, it will execute that. That means all the cases it will be executing that finally block automatically here. Okay, in all the cases, even though exception may be occurred or not, if exception is occurred, respective catch block may be or may not be there, even though it will be executing that finally block executed automatically. Finally block is always executing in all the cases. Okay, in all the cases, it will execute that finally block also automatically because finally blocks are used to close the resources or release the resources whatever we have used. Because after this particular line of code, I may have written some collections also here. I may have written some collections also to make those collection values null. To release that memory here, we are going to be using that finally block. Finally block is used to release all the resources which have used inside your application. Because of the application abnormal termination, some other collections are also there I am unable to use. So at that time, I need to release those resources also so that other people can able to use that memory. For that reason, we are using that finally block. In this finally block, we can release all the resources. Collections, we can make that collections empty also. We can remove that elements also. We can make that collection empty also. We can perform all the operations. Okay. So in this case here, whenever we are going to be using that exception handling mechanism, we have to use that try block and then catch block, and then we have to use finally block. So these are the three blocks we are using to handle exceptions through programmatically inside your sales. Okay. Whenever you are performing any DML operations or SOQL queries, write those DML statements code inside your try block, and then handling code we have to write inside your catch. That's what here as part of our triggers concept already I have given one note file to you. There is a triggers document. When you go to the triggers document, I have clearly given one note file to you. Upon writing that code, please handle the exceptions with the help of the exception handling mechanism. As part of best practices, I have given that. Always use the try and the catch blocks inside the trigger to handle exceptions. Okay, this is the point of it. So we have prepared that. So whenever I'm writing any programming code, it may be any Apex class, any DML operations, always use that exception handling mechanism because it may be causing some exceptions also. So that we can able to handle those exceptions also. We can find out the root cause also why the exception has been occurred with the help of that particular debug block file. If the exception has been getting occurred, if we did not handle this exception by using try catch blocks, even debug block file also will not be getting generated. So we can't find out the root cause why the exception has been occurred. That is the problem. So that here, upon writing the code, please handle the exceptions by using try catch blocks inside. It may be Visual Force pages also. In the controller classes, we are going to be using this. In the batch classes also, schedule classes also, whenever exception has been occurred, then please handle those exceptions with the help of the try and the catch blocks inside this. Okay, clear? Now, so whenever if you want to prepare your own custom exception class, okay, for example, if you want to prepare your own custom exception class, then we have to follow this syntax. We have to prepare that. Public class, specify your class name here. Okay, specify your class name. Exception class name extends, okay, extends exception. Okay, here you can write the code. Prepare your own exception class. But in this case, what happened that already told you each and every custom exception class name should be always ends with the word exception. For example, I'm preparing that exception class, public class invalid loan type exception. Extends exception. That means each and every custom exception class should be extended. That means here, okay, extendable from the exception class. That means this is the base class. I'm going to be accessing all the functionalities of exception class into my own custom exception class. Here we can able to write that. I'm preparing public class insufficient funds exception. Extends exception. Write the code. We can able to prepare your own exceptions. It depends upon your application requirement. We can able to specify your own exceptions also. Like that, we can prepare your own exception classes separately. We can able to use them inside your applications also. Okay. Clear? So this is the way we are going to be using the exception handling mechanism inside your Apex program. Always we have to handle the exceptions by using try block, catch block, and then finally block. We can have only one try block, multiple catch blocks, only one finally block. Try block, okay, can be available without that finally, but try block cannot be available without catch block. Try block should have minimum one catch block. Try block should have minimum one catch block. Without the catch block, we can't prepare any try block. Okay. So these are the various functionalities you can able to use as part of your exception handling mechanism. If anybody asks what exactly the exception handling mechanism and then what kind of exceptions are that you have faced during your application, then you can able to say this whole information. These are the various standard exceptions that you have faced inside your application execution, and then you can able to give that information also. Along with that, mixed DML operation exception, view strip exceptions, all these things you can able to explain during the interview point of view. Clear?